Yeah, I know it's a WWF title belt, but it's an nWo video. I gotta play the guitar on some kind of belt. What do you think? I just have a plethora of replica belts or something? Not some freaking loser. On March 1st, 2025, perhaps the biggest betrayal in professional wrestling happened when John Cena turned his back on the fans at the Elimination Chamber. To find a betrayal as big as John Cena's heel turn, you'd have to go back nearly 30 years to July 1996. What was the wrestling world saying just days after Hulk Hogan turned his back on WCW? We go back and look at the transcript from Bash at the Beach 96, try to decipher what Hulk Hogan was trying to say in the pages of a pro wrestling magazine.
Rankings and rumors, who's top of the list? Dream match scenarios you don't want to miss. Spotlights on legends, the moves they've perfected. Behind the scenes scoops that you never expected. From the pages of a wrestling magazine, profiles, predictions, and champion supreme. Breaking news and the wildest scenes. It all comes alive in a wrestling magazine.
Hi, I'm Gregory Iron, professional wrestler with cerebral palsy, motivational speaker, and host of the Iron on Wrestling podcast. You can get the audio episodes early, extended bonus audio episodes like a deep dive into this magazine, extended videos, behind the scenes footage, live chats with me, packages in the mail. All of that's available over on patreon.com/irononwrestling. Before we get started with the video, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. It helps create visibility for the podcast, and we do thank you very much. It took us 3 weeks to get some answers from John Cena after his dastardly betrayal of the WWE Universe.
You're dumped. Oh, you don't want to hear it. It's too tough for you, huh?
But after Hulk Hogan dropped 3 leg drops, it only took us a few moments to get some reasoning. In the December 1996 issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the writers of the magazine decided to transcribe and decipher just exactly what the newly christened Hollywood Hulk Hogan was trying to say. Hulk Hogan is right. As you could see, Hulk Hogan was still trying to get his bad guy posing down. I could see why he didn't want to stick with the kitty cat type pose. You can hear him hissing through the magazine. Meow. Brother. Right below Hulk Hogan is right, the headline, it says, "Will Hogan join Diesel and Ramon?" Headline in PWI Weekly, mailed to subscribers June 26, 1996. Now, that's crazy that someone actually predicted Hulk Hogan aligning with Razor Ramon and Diesel. I don't know of anybody who predicted the Hulk Hogan heel turn, except for one guy.
Yeah, but whose side is he on? What are you talking about?
No, not Bobby the Brain Heenan. I was actually watching the pay-per-view at some kid's house that I never hung out with before or after I watched this show. His dad was watching the show with us, and at one point during the pay-per-view, if you remember watching it, Gene Okerlund is backstage, and he's outside the door of the Outsiders, and he says he can hear a voice that seems familiar.
But it's muffled, and I can't really identify it. It rings in the back of my mind.
And this dude behind me watching, it's Hulk Hogan, he's third man. And I was like, are you some kind of idiot? What? You're an actual moron. There's no way Hulk Hogan would betray WCW. And then he dropped 3 leg drops on the Macho Man and subsequently betrayed WCW. They actually feature photos of Hulk Hogan dropping the leg, and the caption says, "No one could believe it. Hulk Hogan joined the Outsiders in the ring. Leg dropped Randy Savage repeatedly. Then just laughed as the crowd booed him. Unbelievable." That far off the mark with his remarks. Perhaps what hurts most about his venomous soliloquy was that he was speaking the truth. We just didn't want to hear it. The following is a breakdown of the Bash at the Beach speech made by Hogan, plus our analysis of the stunning words.
And everybody was wondering who the third man was. Well, who knows more about that organization than me, brother?
Perhaps we should have known all along. When Scott Hall and Kevin Nash invaded WCW, they were too confident, too reckless. They walked around as if they owned the place. They didn't. But they had aligned themselves with the guy who practically owned the place. While they weren't representatives of the WWF, they had apparently grown tired of some of the comments Eric Bischoff had made about their former federation and, by association, their accomplishments in that federation. They needed someone just as bitter. That's why they sought out and found Hogan. What's interesting about this is we know now that in storyline, they weren't even for sure if Hulk Hogan would actually come to the ring to do this. They had Sting as a backup. It's funny to think about Eric Bischoff's take on that now as opposed to what was being said in the magazine. The magazine goes with the idea that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, they still had some sort of respect and allegiance for the Federation even if they weren't employed. But Eric Bischoff has gone on record to say they weren't supposed to represent the WWF. They were just bitter ex-employees of WCW that hated their old gimmicks during their previous run, which of course would have been that of like the Master Blaster and Oz, and of course Vinny Vegas, the Diamond Stud.
I made that organization a monster. I made people rich up there.
Wrestling can be separated into two eras, before Hogan and after Hogan. Wrestling subsequently enjoyed a business boom that has yet to be surpassed. Gone were the male-dominated, smoke-filled arenas. In came rock and roll and family-oriented sports entertainment. That is pretty spot on. Hulk Hogan, his superhero persona alone, changed the course of professional wrestling, even though you can argue he's an actual piece of garbage now. Some people love that golden era of the 80s and 90s WWF. Some people might say that today's current era makes wrestling more popular than it's ever been. What do you think is the most popular era of professional wrestling? Is it this one? Is it the Attitude Era? Is it the Golden Era? Leave your comments below.
And when it all came to pass, the man Hulk Hogan got bigger than the whole organization, brother.
Wrestling became Hulk Hogan. While the WWF was the premier promotion, Hogan was by far its most recognizable and marketable personality. Whenever someone else held the WWF title, he was compared to Hogan. I guess that's hard to argue. I mean, in the WWF side of things, they try to push guys like Bret Hart, and still no one was really comparing to the mainstream status that Hulk Hogan had. You can also take in consideration that, wrestling had just gone through a bunch of controversies. It wasn't really the best time to be a wrestling fan.
I held my head high. I did everything for the charities. I did everything for the kids. And the reception I got when I came out here, you fans can stick it, brother.
Hogan checked his ego at the door when it came to children and needy causes. He signed autographs at promotional events for hours without complaint. He posed for pictures with mentally and physically challenged kids. He was a cheerleader for people in need, and he hoped and prayed others would follow his lead. But the Teflon on Hogan started to chip away. A few fans got sick of him and started to boo.
Woo! What you gonna do, brother, when the Hulkster destroys you?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Hulk Hogan is here.
When he entered WCW, the former outsider received a chilly reception in some of the cities in which Ric Flair was treated like a king. Hogan had not changed. The fans had changed. So did wrestling. It's interesting sort of the parallels between John Cena and Hulk Hogan, why they turned the back on the fans. Hogan was getting stale. People were just sick of him. John Cena, however, always had a mixed reception, and he sort of leaned into that when cutting his promo this past week on Monday Night Raw. We still need to find out why he aligned with The Rock. Are the misdeeds that he's done solely because he's desperate to capture 17? I wonder if this is going to bring any lapsed fans back, kind of like Hulk Hogan did with the nWo. What do you think? Let me know. Comment below.
And if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan, all these Johnny-come-latelys that you see out here, wrestling wouldn't be here. I was selling out the world, brother, while they were bumming gas to put in their car to get to high school.
The Ultimate Warrior, Sting, Lex Luger, and a litany of others show the influence of Hulk Hogan. A lot of the bodybuilder types that did enter professional wrestling was because Hulk Hogan really ushered in an era of big men. When you thought pro wrestling in the 80s and 90s, you thought larger than life, not just characters, but human beings. Which is why now a guy like myself, who's 5'3" and 145 pounds soaking wet, still struggles to get a professional wrestling contract. I'm kidding. It's actually easier for us now. I think the athleticism is a little bit more appreciated, but still, if you're outside the wrestling bubble, I still think there's a standard for which people think a pro wrestler looks like, and Hulk Hogan set that bar high.
What you gonna do when the New World Organization runs wild on you?
We'll see, but with a bad Hulk Hogan ruling wrestling, that future looks ominous. Just like some people love and hate what John Cena is doing as a villain now, we got the same type of impact from fans back in 1996. There's some letters in here writing about Hulk Hogan's dastardly betrayal, but then, of course, there's other letters in here that find Hulk Hogan to be a born-again hero. I think what Hulk Hogan did at Bash at the Beach was the best move of his career. It's about time he turned against his fans and hooked up with the outsiders. This time around, I think Hogan will rule WCW for a very long time. Long live the new Hulkamania. Mike Fasciani of Johnston, PA said, "I cheered when Hulk Hogan joined Nash and Hall at Bash at the Beach. It had been many years since Hogan allowed the dark side of his personality to run wild." Actually, it hadn't been that long. If you go back to the year before in WCW, he definitely let his dark side show, and we would like to forget it. An article on page 42 by Dave Rosenbaum, he argued about how it was a bad business decision for Hulk Hogan to betray the fans and become a bad guy. The difference is that Hogan, the rule breaker, will no longer be able to rake in money from merchandise, video sales, and TV and movie appearances because the flow of money was turned off the instant he entered the ring. That's funny because we would find out years later that basically WCW was losing money making and selling nWo merch because Hulk Hogan got such a big share of the profits. The people who just finished shooting Hogan's new movie must love it that their hero is now the greatest rule breaker in wrestling history. I wonder how many people feel so betrayed by this man that they wouldn't pay to see his movie, even if it was called Die Hard 4. Okay, first of all, Hulk Hogan didn't just come back from filming some big blockbuster. He had just filmed freaking Santa with Muscles.
Watch out, he's got a candy cane!
Patient Santa Claus. Complaint? Blurry vision.
Dave goes on to write, WCW merchandisers shouldn't waste any time. Just burn all remaining Hogan merchandise. In fact, make a show of it. Collect all the t-shirts, bandanas, and styrofoam fingers and place them in a big heap at Disney MGM Studios in Orlando, the site of Hogan's big WCW welcoming parade in 1994. Have a barbecue. Give the fans a chance to roast Hogan. It's crazy, even if they would have burnt all the old Hulk Hogan merchandise, that still wouldn't have been the worst financial decision that WCW ever made. Well, what did you think of the coverage of the nWo in the December 1996 issue of PWI? Let me know in the comments below. We're going to dig deeper into this magazine in an audio podcast. Just make sure you sign up to patreon.com/IronOnWrestling. There's also hundreds and hundreds of archived podcasts you can check out over on the Patreon. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And just so you know, this Friday, I'm getting bicep tendon surgery. Yes, I have one arm right now, but I'm not going to have any arms for the next 6 weeks, and I'm going to be out for months and months and months going forward because of the surgery. So if you'd like to support me, there's a GoFundMe link below that my Patreon members made. I do appreciate if you can donate. Even if you share, that's good enough for me. Thanks for stopping by, and until next time, kiss goodbye. Too sweet, brother.